You think you are safe. You think you are smart for playing it cautious, for staying low, for not risking too much. But I'm here to tell you the truth. You've tried to avoid. Your comfort zone is not a sanctuary. It's a cage. And the worst part, you built it yourself. Brick by brick, excuse by excuse, delay by delay. Every time you said not yet, every time you said someday, you added another lock to the door. And now you wonder why you feel stuck, why you feel numb, why life feels like a loop. It's because you've mistaken stillness for peace. But stillness without growth is decay. Peace without progress is a slow death. You don't need a new plan. You don't need another strategy. You need to wake up, because every dream you once had is suffocating under the weight of your hesitation. Your ideas, they've expired waiting on you to take action. Your goals, they've become background noise behind your scrolling, your sighing, your passive surviving. And I say this not to shame you, but to shake you, because you were not built for repetition without evolution. You were not built to repeat, retreat, regret. You were built to rise, to break, to rebuild, to move. But your comfort zone has convinced you that safety is more valuable than purpose, that ease is more noble than expansion, that maintaining the illusion of control is better than facing the fire of growth. And now, every time something challenges you, you call it overwhelming. You label discomfort as a threat, when in truth, it's your rescue call. It's the last voice of your ambition trying to reach you from the other side of your fears. You think the pain of pushing your limits will destroy you. What's destroying you is staying still. Do you remember who you were before the fear? Before the habits? The stories? The compromises? Do you remember the fire? The clarity? The raw hunger that lived behind your ribs and told you there was more? More than this job. More than this version of you. More than this cautious, calculated survival. But you traded that hunger for practicality. You buried it under busy work, you numbed it with entertainment, you diluted it with distraction. And now you wear a life that doesn't fit you. Too tight in some places, too loose in others. But you refuse to change it because the process of tailoring is too uncomfortable. And that is the definition of imprisonment. Not bars, not chains, but settling into what no longer serves you, just because it's familiar. Familiarity is not the same as fulfillment. You keep asking why nothing's changing. I'll tell you why. Because you keep showing up as the same person expecting different outcomes. You want a better life without becoming a better version of yourself. You want the reward without the transformation. You want destiny to knock while you hide behind the curtain of, I'm not ready. But let me be clear. Readiness is not a prerequisite for greatness. Commitment is. You think the giants of history waited to feel ready? Edison failed 10,000 times before the light stayed on. Ford went bankrupt 5 times before building an empire. Carnegie started with nothing and rewrote his entire bloodline. They weren't more gifted. They were more willing, more committed, more allergic to excuses. What you call obstacles, they called invitations. What you call pressure, they called purpose. What you label discomfort, they used as fuel. And that's the difference between the builder and the beggar. The builder leans into discomfort. The beggar avoids it. One builds a legacy, the other builds a prison. Every time you avoid the hard thing, the thing that scares you, the thing that stretches you, you build another wall inside your mind. A wall that separates who you are from who you could be. And before you know it, the walls are so high, so thick, you forget there was ever another version of you. You mistake the prison for a palace. You start decorating your cage with achievements that don't fulfill you. You post photos with smiles that don't match your soul. You collect praise for a mask you're tired of wearing. And all the while, your real life is out there, waiting for you to burn the map, to break the script, to become dangerous again, to make a decision that doesn't just shift your week, but rewrites your trajectory. That decision won't feel safe. It won't feel comfortable, but it will feel real. And if you've forgotten what real feels like, it's that trembling in your chest when you say, this ends now. When you finally admit, this isn't enough. I was made for more. That is not arrogance. That is truth knocking. And if you keep ignoring it, the cost will not just be your dreams, it will be your identity. Because, here's the secret, no one tells you. Every day you stay comfortable. You vote against your own potential. You cast a ballot for average. You say, I'll settle for less, just don't ask me to grow. But growth is not optional. Not if you want to live free, because your comfort zone does not love you. It loves your obedience. It loves your silence. It loves when you say, next year. It thrives when you play small, but freedom does not come to the silent. Purpose does not chase the passive. You want a different life? Then become a different man. One small rebellion at a time. One defiance of doubt. One refusal to skip your discipline. One decision to answer fear, not with flight, but with fire. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are simply overdue for war. With every limitation, you've made a home. And so I say this now. Not as a suggestion, but as a sentence. Your comfort zone is your prison. Burn it. Tear down the stories that held you. Dismantle the excuses that disguised themselves as wisdom. Abandon the identities that were born out of survival, not vision. You are not here to survive. You are here to become. And becoming begins where comfort ends. And when you finally step outside that comfort zone, when you take that first step into the raw wind of uncertainty, everything will scream for you to go back. Your habits will whisper, "It was easier before." Your fears will beg, "Let's not do this today." Your past will reach for you like hands from the grave, trying to pull you back into the life you've already outgrown. And this is where most men turn around. Not because they're weak, but because they never built the mindset to walk forward without applause. They never trained their soul to move in silence. You must understand this now. Your breakthrough will not come wrapped in a round of cheers. It will not be awarded by others. It will be forged alone, in discomfort, under pressure, in the furnace of "no one believes in me, but I still move." That's where kings are born. That's where legends are chiseled. That's where you must live now. Outside the walls, beneath the weight, beyond the noise. Every time you return to comfort, you shrink your capacity. You train your identity to believe that safety is your ceiling, that ease is your aim, that stability is the goal. But the truth, stability without expansion is stagnation. And stagnation is just a slow motion death. You're not drowning, you're dissolving. Bit by bit, dream by dream, until you no longer recognize the man in the mirror. But here's what the world forgot to teach you. Fire doesn't only destroy, it refines. Pressure doesn't only hurt. It reveals you've avoided the pain that would have made you powerful. You've dodged the pressure that would have shaped you into something unshakable. And now you wonder why you feel hollow. Like life keeps happening around you. Like everyone else is moving forward while you stand on pause. Let me say this to your soul. You are not stuck. You are just comfortable. And you're mistaking the absence of fear for peace, when in fact, it's paralysis. You've convinced yourself that calm means you're in control. But real control comes when you can walk into chaos and still execute. Real power is being able to operate under pressure, to keep showing up when there is no motivation, no mood, no clarity, only commitment. Do you know what commitment really is? It's making a promise to the version of you that doesn't exist yet, and showing up every day until he does. It's building without blueprint. It's bleeding into your habits, your schedule, your standards, until the world begins to respond. Not because you asked, but because you became. No one is coming to save you. That's not a threat. It's a gift. It means the door to freedom has always been inside your own spine. It means you don't need permission, a perfect plan, or ideal conditions. You just need to move. Not with certainty, but with courage. Not with confidence, but with direction. Your direction is your defiance. Every step you take out of your comfort zone is a strike against every system that told you to stay small. The education system that never taught you how to think, only how to comply. The society that rewards silence more than speech. The people around you who applaud mediocrity and mock ambition. You weren't meant to blend in. You were born to rise, not by noise, not by luck, but by law. The law of personal evolution. The law of uncomfortable growth. The law that says, if I don't build it, it doesn't get built. And yes, it will cost you. It will cost you your laziness, your blame, your soft story about how you could have been great. If only you will lose friends who love the old version of you, the one who didn't rise too fast or speak too boldly. You will be misunderstood, misquoted, maybe even mocked. But that's not rejection, that's refinement. The fire that burns away everything that was never part of your purpose. You'll feel lonely, but you won't be alone. You'll be accompanied by every man in history who dared to answer his calling louder than his excuses. They walked this path too, through the shadows of fear, across the deserts of doubt, toward the horizon. Only they could see. And now it's your turn. You've waited long enough. You've read the books, watched the videos, taken the notes. But information without execution is just entertainment. You don't need more knowledge. You need more war. War against the voice that says, later. War against the mood that says rest. War against the belief that you can live fully without ever changing who you are. You want to win the morning. Stop snoozing. The moment you promised yourself would change your life. You want to find your purpose. Stop asking for signs and start creating evidence. You want freedom. Start paying the price. Because every discipline you skip is $1 stolen from your destiny. Every compromise you justify is a delay on your future. Every moment you entertain doubt is a betrayal of your own vision. And yes, you can lie to the world, but the one man you can't lie to is the one staring back at you every night. He knows. He always knows. He knows when you said you'd change, but didn't. When you said you'd start but stalled. When you promised to rise but returned to comfort. The second the pressure came. But he also knows what you're capable of. He's seen glimpses. The way your eyes light up when you remember who you were before the excuses. The way your hands tighten when you imagine what's possible. The way your heart beats differently when the idea of more finally sounds like a calling and not a curse. So let today be the day you stop running from that man and become him. Let this be your moment, not of hype, but of declaration. No more comfort, no more delay, no more false peace. Say this aloud. I do not live in a cage, I burn the walls. I leave what is safe and become what is free. I am not waiting for life to find me, I'm forging it. Say it again, until it sounds like prophecy, until it shakes the dust off your dreams, until every part of your body remembers what it means to move like a builder and think like a king. Because this is not a phase, not a mood, not a motivational high. This is your reckoning. You've been told that life is about balance, that you should pace yourself. That moderation is wisdom. But what they didn't tell you is that balance without vision is stagnation disguised as stability. You weren't born to coast, you were born to climb. And you can't climb with 1 foot chained to the ground of good enough. Good enough is the death of greatness. You keep trying to manage your time when what you need is to command it. You try to stay motivated when what you need is to be governed by mission. Mission does not care how you feel. Mission does not ask for mood. Mission requires movement, whether it rains or shines, whether you're praised or ignored, whether the path is lit or lost in fog, you go. Because the man you're becoming, he doesn't wait for direction, he becomes the direction. This is the turning point. The moment you cross from being someone who reacts to someone who creates. You stop being a responder to life and start being an author of it. And authors don't write their stories based on how the audience feels. They write what must be written. You don't negotiate your standards anymore. You don't shrink your goals to fit your circle. You don't apologize for expecting more from yourself than the world expects from you. You rewrite your laws. You raise your ceiling. You decide once and for all, I will no longer be the man who almost. The man who almost succeeded, almost changed, almost broke free, almost fulfilled his potential, almost is the language of prisoners. Men who could have been giants, but chose comfort instead. Men who remembered the dream, but never signed the contract with discipline. But not you, not anymore. Because, here's the raw truth. The future you want is already real, just on the other side of who you're pretending to be. And that version of you, he doesn't live in excuses. He doesn't sit around debating the weather of his emotions. He has a schedule that is law, habits that are armor, and a mind trained to execute regardless of applause or opposition. He is not moved by trends. He is not led by feelings. He moves with command. He does not ask, can I? He decides, I must. And you've seen him before. In the moments where you stood tall without needing anyone's permission. In the silence after defeat, when your spirit whispered, get up again. In the flashes of ambition that cut through your doubt, like lightning through a storm. He's real. He's in you. He's been waiting. But you've kept him on a leash called maybe. Maybe when I'm ready. Maybe when I'm not so tired. Maybe when it's the right time. Here's the truth you've been avoiding. There is no right time. There is only now. Now where every excuse becomes a chain or a choice. Now where you either repeat the same year one more time, or you rewrite your entire legacy. You think you have time. But time does not wait for men who hesitate. It rewards those who declare. You think you can figure it out before you start. But the path becomes clear only for the one who moves. You think discomfort means something's wrong, but discomfort is the price of entry. It's the gatekeeper of greatness. And the man who is not willing to be uncomfortable is not ready to carry the weight of his own future. So get this straight. You cannot be comfortable and be great at the same time. Greatness is forged in sweat, in silence, in repetition, in sacrifice. It's built by the man who wakes early, not for likes, but for legacy. By the man who trains when he's tired, not because he loves pain, but because he loves becoming unrecognizable to the man he used to be. By the man who stays loyal to his vision longer than others stay loyal to their emotions. This world will offer you every reason to stay soft, every platform to blame, every distraction to numb. But you are not here to blend in. You are not here to cope. You are here to conquer. And conquering begins where excuses end. So write this into your bones. I do not need more motivation. I need to move. I do not wait for clarity, I create it. I do not escape pressure, I train under it. I do not return to comfort, I burn the map back. Say it until your voice becomes law, until your habits obey your words, until your energy is no longer scattered between maybe and must, but locked in on one aim, to become the man who finishes what others fear to begin. This isn't just about success, this is about liberation, from the weak identity that kept you soft, from the story that told you you weren't ready, from the fantasy that life would reward your intentions instead of your repetitions. You are not entitled to your dream. You are entrusted with it, and the only way to prove you deserve it is to suffer for it, to show up for it, to obey it even when no one is watching, no one is clapping, no one understands what you're building. But you keep building anyway, because builders don't wait for validation. They leave evidence. And that is your task now, to leave evidence that you were here, that you refused to fold, that you made your mind a weapon and your life a message. Not one built on likes, but on law. The law that says, I do not shrink to fit my surroundings. I grow until my surroundings must expand to fit me. The world is not changed by the man who waits. It is changed by the man who walks forward while afraid, who builds while alone, who acts while uncertain, who speaks truth louder than fear, who rises, not because he's ready, but because he's done being stuck. That man is dangerous, and it's time to become him. And when you become that man, the one who no longer waits, no longer apologizes for growing, no longer needs comfort to keep going, something strange begins to happen. The world shifts. Not because it changed, but because you stopped asking for permission to live differently. Doors that were once closed begin to open, not because they weren't locked, but because you stopped knocking and started kicking. The world does not resist strength, it bows to it. And strength is not about muscles or money. It's about consistency in the face of uncertainty. It's about waking up day after day and doing what you said you'd do when motivation is nowhere to be found. It's about training your spirit to obey your word even when your body begs for softness. Because discipline without direction is punishment. But discipline under vision, that's how empires are built. Let me ask you something most men never face. What is your life worshiping? Look at your habits, your time, your attention. Not what you say you value, but what you repeat. Because repetition is worship. And every day you repeat softness, procrastination, excuses. You are bowing to the god of average. But every day you repeat your discipline, your law, your mission. You are bending the universe around your aim. Because the universe doesn't reward intentions. It rewards patterns, and you've trained it to ignore you. Every time you skipped, every time you broke your word, every time you negotiated with purpose and said, just this once, you were teaching life not to take you seriously. And now you're wondering why nothing's moving, why it all feels flat, why your voice doesn't seem to matter. It's not because you're not talented, it's because your rhythm is too soft to send a signal. You want life to hear you. Then repeat louder. Repeat longer. Repeat until your bones know the way even when your brain forgets. Because the man who is most consistent becomes the most undeniable. Not the fastest, not the smartest, not the one who starts with the most, but the one who does not stop, the one who trains while others talk, who builds while others brainstorm, who shows up when no one else is watching. That man becomes gravity. Others begin to orbit him. Not because he sought it, but because his presence became inevitable. And you know what's crazy? That man is not far from you. He is you. Minus the excuses, minus the softness, minus the lie that said you needed more time before you could begin. He is built through every morning you wanted to skip, but didn't. Through every workout you completed with shaking hands, through every act of obedience when no reward showed up, through every silent, brutal, victorious day you chose to repeat. The difference between being inspired and being transformed, repetition. The difference between starting something and finishing it, repetition. The difference between comfort and command, repetition. And I know what you're thinking, but I've tried. Number, you dabbled. You dipped your toe into greatness and ran when it got cold. You sampled discipline like a dessert, not realizing it was the meal. You flirted with purpose and wondered why it didn't commit. But purpose doesn't date part-timers. It marries the man who stays. So, hear me now. If you want to break the cycle, you must break yourself open. You must be willing to be shattered by consistency, to let go of the version of you that keeps surviving, and finally become the one who starts living. Not someday, today, because the longer you wait, the more convincing the prison becomes. It starts to feel like home. You start defending the walls, decorating them, justifying the silence. But deep inside, your spirit is screaming, let me out. Let me out of this small talk. Let me out of this cautious routine. Let me out of this mask I've worn for so long. I started believing it was my face. There is a version of you that no one's met yet, not even you. He's louder, sharper, simpler, hungrier, and he doesn't over-explain. He doesn't dilute himself to be palatable. He doesn't shrink, so others can feel tall. He speaks, and the room adjusts. He enters, and the energy shifts. Why? Not because of charisma, but because he's paid in silence what others beg for in noise. He's earned it through repetition, through obedience, through unseen days of work that carved presence into his voice. That man is not born. He is built brick by brick, action by action. law by law. And the first law is this: I will no longer ask the world for permission to become myself. Say it aloud. Say it until the weakness leaves your bones. Say it until your comfort zone starts to tremble. Say it until your future believes you. Because if you don't believe you, nothing else matters. Not the advice, not the books, not the motivation. All of it is background noise. If your own soul can't trust your voice, and trust isn't built through passion, it's built through pattern, through the slow, sacred, unsexy work of showing up when it would have been easier not to. So show up, not as who you were, as who you decided to become. And do not come gently. Come violently. Come boldly. Come like the man who just remembered who he is, the man who repeats, the man who burns the map, the man who left comfort behind because he finally understood it was never safety, it was seduction. And you do not dance with seduction, you destroy it, with fire, with rhythm, with law. And now that you've burned the comfort zone, now that the smoke rises behind you, and there's no map to return to, you are free. Not the kind of freedom the world sells, fake freedom wrapped in convenience and dopamine, but real freedom, the kind earned in sweat and silence, the kind that demands something from you every day, the kind that forces you to ask, what will I do with this liberty I've purchased in pain? Because now the game begins. Not the game of competition, not the game of comparison, the game of domination, not over others, but over yourself, over your mind, over your reactions, over your time, over your emotional weather. Because greatness is not built in storms. It is built when you can command the storm and still execute. You want to become unstoppable? Govern yourself. Because the man who is not governed within will always be ruled by what's around him. Distraction becomes law, fear becomes reason, mood becomes master, and purpose. It drowns in the noise, but not you, not anymore. Now you rise, not because it's convenient, but because it's commanded. You move not because it feels good, but because it's written. You execute not for applause, but for alignment. Because you've seen what happens when you live at half strength. You've watched your own vision grow cold in your hands. You've felt the betrayal of your own promises. You've lived with the guilt of potential unfulfilled. And now you know, softness has never protected you. It has only delayed your becoming. So write this as law. I rise early because my future won't wait. I execute now because delay is disobedience. I repeat daily because one strike is not enough. Burn it into your routines, into your calendar, into your thoughts. Because your thoughts are blueprints. Every time you say, I can't, you're laying bricks in a building you'll regret. Every time you say ladder, you're signing a lease with mediocrity. Every time you say it's fine, you're reinforcing the cage you swore you'd escape. But when your mind becomes law, everything changes. You stop needing hype because you've trained hunger. You stop needing clarity because you've built command. You stop needing inspiration because you've become structure. The outside world will still be chaotic. People will still disappoint you. Conditions will still shift. But none of it can touch the man who has governed himself so completely that his decisions do not tremble at the feet of emotion. That's what separates the few from the many. Not talent, not timing, structure. And structure isn't rigidity, it's rhythm. It's the heartbeat of greatness. It's the reason a builder can walk into a field of chaos and see a cathedral. It's how empires rise and weak men fall. Because in a world full of motion, only the man with structure will rise on command. So now you decide, what structure will carry your life? Not someone else's plan, not another motivational hack, your code, your rules, your inner government. What time do you rise? That's a law. What do you repeat every morning? That's a law. What thoughts are no longer allowed at the table? That's a law. What actions will you take regardless of mood? That's a law. Because if you don't write law, you'll obey impulse. And impulse does not build anything worth remembering. You want legacy, then act like it. You want impact, then build systems worthy of it. You want freedom, then enforce law on yourself. Before life enforces regret. This is your government now, and you are both king and servant. You write the laws, you obey them, you enforce them, even when tired, even when unseen, even when the world laughs, doubts, forgets. Because discipline fades where law is absent. Discipline is a good start, but it's temporary. It requires mood, momentum, environment, but law is forever. Law doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't check the weather. It doesn't scroll for permission. Law executes. Law performs. Law commands. And you are here to command, not people, yourself. And in commanding yourself, you become magnetic. People will ask you what your secret is. They will think you were born different, but you'll know it was repetition. It was structure. It was the quiet decisions, made daily, with no applause, no audience, and no reward, until reward had no choice but to show up. That's what you must understand. Reward is not something you chase. It is something you summon. You summon it through rhythm, through force of will turned into force of law. Through days that look the same from the outside but compound like fire under pressure. You're not here to dabble. You're not here to wonder. You're not here to check if your dream still wants you. You're here to build until it has no choice but to submit. Because the man who repeats, fey not sometimes, not occasionally, but as law, fey becomes something unstoppable, something unshakable, something undeniable. You've met that man in moments. He flashes through your mirror in the morning after a clean decision. He appears in your reflection when you've honored your word. He stares back at you after you say no to distraction and yes to dominion. That man is who you've always been. The comfort zone just buried him. But now the dirt is gone, the fog has lifted, and your name is starting to echo again. Not the name they gave you, but the name you earn. So say this aloud. Say it like fire. Say it like oath. My actions are law. My word is contract. My path is command. I do not return to comfort. I return to discipline until discipline becomes my identity. Say it again. Say it until your past recognizes it doesn't own you anymore. Say it until your future begins to rearrange itself. Say it until every excuse dies in your mouth. Because this isn't about hustle anymore. This is about becoming who you were always meant to be, before the world convinced you to play it safe. And now that you've spoken it, now that your voice has broken the silence of years spent negotiating with fear, you must walk it. Because words without footsteps are noise, and noise doesn't move mountains. Action does, repetition does. The quiet, relentless, unbreakable pattern of the man who said I will, and meant it. You've tried someday. You've lived when I feel like it. You've danced with maybe, and all they ever gave you was regret, confusion, and the bitter taste of a life that never took flight. So hear me now. You don't need more chances. You need more courage. You don't need another opportunity. You need to become the man who can hold one. Because life doesn't give you what you fantasize about. It gives you what you're structured to sustain. And right now, you're either building a system that attracts your dream, or a system that quietly buries it. There is no middle. Every decision you make is casting a vote. Every delay is voting for your past. Every repetition is voting for your future, and your future is watching. It's not inspired by your potential. It's not impressed by your good intentions. It is activated by your consistency, not your passion, not your ambition, your rhythm. And what is rhythm? Rhythm is when your life begins to move to the beat of law, when getting up early isn't an option, it's an identity. When eating with discipline isn't impressive, it's normal. When executing without drama becomes who you are, not something you force. Because forced effort burns out, but embodied rhythm, it builds empires. Ask Edison. He didn't create the light bulb in a burst of inspiration. He created it in a chamber of repetition. 10,000 attempts, 10,000 refinements, 10,000 invisible days before one day the world noticed. He didn't find the solution. He became the kind of man who refuses to quit until the problem surrenders. That's who you must be now. Not the man who waits for perfect timing. Not the man who tries and retreats. Not the man who gets it right once in a while. The man who becomes too consistent to ignore, and when the world tries to pull you back, because it will. When the people who never change tell you you're too intense. When the old version of you starts to whisper from the shadows, asking, wasn't it easier when we didn't care this much? You don't flinch, because you've already made peace with this truth. Comfort is cheap, but greatness is rent paid daily, and I pay in full. Say it again, louder this time. I pay in full, not when I feel like it, not when I'm seen. I pay in silence, in sweat, in repetition, until the world can't look away. That's what it takes. And the reason most men never reach it isn't because they lack talent. It's because they lack tolerance for the dull pain of discipline. They want the fireworks, the shout-outs, the dopamine hit of something new. But what builds power is not new. It's known. It's boring. It's sacred. The same reps, the same words, the same time, the same process. Over and over and over, until one day you look in the mirror and don't recognize the man staring back. Because he is stronger, calmer, sharper. Not because of some grand transformation, but because you didn't stop, you didn't skip, you didn't let a bad day become a bad week. You didn't let one compromise unravel your identity. You stayed, you built, you became. And now, they wonder how you did it. But the truth is, you didn't do anything miraculous. You just refused to quit. You refused to let the mood win. You refused to let excuses breathe. You refused to be the man who explained his failures better than he built his success. And let's be honest, that's the man you used to be. You were good at explaining, good at justifying, good at telling stories about how close you were, how unfair life was, how one day would arrive, But stories don't build legacy, laws do. So let this be your final shift. From storyteller to structure, from dreamer to builder, from maybe to must. Because you've spent too many years trying to find the right mindset, the right plan, the right path. But you don't need another map, you need to walk. You need to rise tomorrow without question. You need to execute today like your name depends on it, because it does. You need to leave no part of your identity in the hands of impulse. You need to declare, I am done with the man who waited. I am done with the man who needed praise to move. I am done with the man who needed comfort more than clarity, because comfort is not your calling. Domination is, not over others, over delay, over doubt, over drift, over every internal voice that ever told you, stay small. And this time, you don't argue with that voice. You don't explain yourself to it. You silence it with execution. Because now you know the truth. Faith, a comfort zone, isn't just a place you hide. It's a place where dreams go to die in peace. Asterisk, asterisk. But you're not here for peace. You're here for fire. You're here to disrupt, to rebuild, to dominate, to repeat until reality shifts, to become unrecognizable to the version of you that thought comfort was enough. And now that the fire is lit, you move. You move, not like a man running from his past, but like a man dragging the future into the present. Step by step, strike by strike, not fast, but unstoppable, because speed is a thrill, but consistency is a weapon, and you don't need to be the fastest. You need to be the last one standing. When others collapse from boredom, from doubt, from the ache of slow results, you stay. Because now repetition is no longer your enemy, it's your crown. You wear it daily, not as a burden, but as an identity. Because kings do not build their kingdoms in one act. They build it in layers, in patterns, in laws that do not bend. And every morning you rise into your law, you add another stone to your empire, another strike to your foundation, another chapter to the story of the man who could have quit, but didn't. Let me tell you something you've always known but maybe never accepted. The life you want will not meet you halfway. It waits at the end of everything you've avoided, and it only opens its doors to the man who knocks with bloodied hands. Because freedom is not free. It is purchased with pain that has a purpose, not the suffering of confusion, not the struggle of chaos, the sacred pain of discipline, the sacrifice of comfort, the crucifixion of the weaker version of yourself. That's what greatness costs. It costs the version of you that breaks under pressure. It costs the excuses that made you feel smart for failing. It costs the fantasy that the world owes you anything. It doesn't. You owe yourself the chance to see what's possible. You owe the 8-year-old version of you, the one who dreamed without fear, the chance to see what happens when the adult finally stops negotiating with laziness and starts obeying legacy. And maybe no one will understand at first. Maybe your growth will scare the people who benefited from your smallness. Maybe your silence will offend those who were addicted to your softness. Maybe your decision to stop explaining will feel like arrogance to those who never dared to aim as high as you. Let them talk. Your mission is not to be liked. Your mission is to become undeniable. Not loud, not flashy, unshakable. Because the man who builds himself from law, not mood, is rare. And the rare man becomes the reference point. He becomes the reason others rise early, the reason others train harder, the reason others speak truth, walk taller, and believe again. Not because he said something inspiring, but because he became the proof. You want to inspire, then stop posting and start repeating. You want to change the world. Then start by becoming the kind of man the world cannot ignore. One who doesn't collapse under doubt. One who doesn't retreat into comfort. One who doesn't apologize for becoming disciplined, dangerous, decisive. The kind of man who builds rhythm so sharp, it slices through every excuse. The kind of man who wakes with law, walks with law, speaks with law, until his very presence enforces order. You may not be there yet. But if you keep showing up, if you keep returning, if you keep ignoring the voice that says rest when your soul screams more, then one day soon, you'll wake up and realize something sacred. You are no longer becoming him. You are him. You are the man who cannot be moved. You are the man who burned his comfort zone and never looked back. You are the man whose life does not rise and fall with emotion, but expands with structure. You are the man who no longer negotiates with weakness, but walks by law. And because of that, the world listens differently. It moves differently. It responds. Because when a man obeys law long enough, the universe has no choice but to make space for him. So this is where we end, and where you begin. Not in the comfort zone, but in the forge. Not with feelings, but with fire. Not with hope, but with structure. You are no longer the man who waits. You are no longer the man who wonders. You are the man who builds. Say this now, not as a phrase, but as prophecy. I have left the comfort zone behind. I live by law. I move by command. I rise by repetition. I finish what I begin, and the world must yield because I no longer do. Say it again. Say it until your past stops trying to resurrect. Say it until your future rushes to meet you. Say it until your bones remember why you were born. This isn't motivation. This is memory. You were never meant for the cage. You were built for the crown. And now that you've burned the prison, walk like you own the ground, because you do.